Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Monday, February 10th. Super Bowl in the books. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles getting that Super Bowl ring that they were not able to acquire a couple years back, right? Beating the Chiefs soundly. What a game that was. And we're going to talk about kind of what the Jaguars can learn from the Super Bowl and from the playoffs in general. And really, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's not, but there's some things that the Eagles have done that the Chiefs have not in recent years, and it's helped put them over the top, quite frankly. And so we're going to talk about what the Jaguars can learn from the Super Bowl. Very topical discussion. So we're going to get into that. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. You can also check out genjag.com/shop. Pick up some new Duval gear. Become a channel member here on YouTube. So, Jaguars, what can they learn from the Super Bowl? Well, for one, I think a lot of this game came down to trench play. And a lot of most football games comes down to trench play. It is the beginning of the play, right? Offensive line versus defensive line. It is the quickest way to win or lose a play, right? Having success or not having success up front. So the Jaguars, when you look at the way their roster is currently built, they've got to improve their interior offensive line massively, and they've got to improve their interior defensive line as well. Now, could there be internal improvement in that regard? I think defensive line-wise, yes. You kick Eric Armstead inside, and he's not coming off of a surgery, right? He's going to be fully healthy entering this offseason. I think that, yeah, playing him at 3-tech or, defensive tackle versus playing him on the edge, that improves your defensive line. Mason Smith, again, a candidate to improve in year 2 of his NFL career. So there can definitely be internal improvement. You've also got some other young guys. I mean, Jordan Jefferson is a young football player as well. Devon Hamilton, could he improve? Having another year removed from his medical issue that kind of really marred his 2023 campaign. And so, yeah, there could be internal improvement there. I think you can just talk about affecting the quarterback as well, being able to pin your ears back and play fast and having waves of guys that can do that. I think the Jaguars really need to address edge 3. But again, just looking at the Eagles, they dominated up front. And they're such a complete football team. And so that you need a complete football team to win the big game, really. And if you don't have a complete football team, things can happen like, your CB2, Jalen Watson, not being able to cover Jahan Dotson or Devontae Smith down the field. You saw the Jaguars regularly this year, their CB2 really struggled. And look, when you're going up against an A.J. Brown, even a guy like Trent McDuffie can have struggles. Like, that is what it is. But the bigger issue was certainly Jalen Watson's inability to make the plays when he needed to in coverage against Jahan Dotson, against Devontae Smith, right? So I think you look at the other side, the Eagles have Quinyon Mitchell, who's an unbelievable rookie, and Darius Slay, right? And obviously Cooper DeJean, who's an unbelievable rookie as well. But so you need a complete roster. It's not just trench play, but I think trench play is absolutely critical. And you look at the Jaguars too, again, on the offensive side, their 2 tackles are going to be locked in. I think that they're in a good situation. They're not like an elite situation, but a good situation. And then you look at interior offensive line, Ezra Cleveland locked in for 2025. I think that he's again, good, not elite. And I think you have an opportunity, whether it's via free agency or the draft or a combination of the two, to really knock out right guard and center this offseason. And Mitch Morse will still be under contract with the Jaguars, but he's up there in age. The Jaguars really need to make that center and right guard spot, figure out their plan to really hone in on that this offseason. and make those two spots a priority and get it locked up. I think they could certainly add interior defensive line as well. I think that they could add edge three as well. So they've got to lock it up on both sides of the interior. And again, talented corners, talented receivers, so critical. They've got to get a CB2. Tyson Campbell is a very good starting cornerback in this league. Whether you want to call him a CB1 or a CB2, it doesn't matter. He's being paid like a CB1. The Jaguars view him in that light. But the bottom line is they need another really good starting corner. And Jalen Watson really cost the Chiefs last night. He wasn't the only reason they lost, right? You had Patrick Mahomes. They've been so heavily dependent on his ability to get them out of tight spots. And last night he wasn't able to do that. Part of the reason he wasn't able to do that is the offensive line was struggling and the receivers were struggling, and it just was a slog out there. It was a really difficult game, and it got compounded by Patrick Mahomes making some mistakes that he wouldn't normally make. Turning the ball over in some situations he wouldn't normally turn the ball over. But I think you got to have multiple talented corners. No real holes in the secondary. You got to have safety play too. The Eagles showed you that. They have one of the best secondaries in football, and they went from last year, a secondary where they really needed help, and they turned it around in one season. You can do that. You can absolutely do that. And then I think also, just like talking about the completeness of a team, you just can't have bad mismatches in huge games, right? In the playoffs, in games like that. When you do, great coaches like Vic Fangio or Kellen Moore, I think more than proved his worth as an offensive coach this year. Great coaches will take advantage. And then your coaching has to figure out ways to mitigate any weaknesses or mismatches you might have that are in the wrong side of things, right? So there's a lot to look at from these two teams and say we could model things around how the Eagles did it and kind of learn lessons from how the Chiefs have made mistakes personnel wise, coaching wise, etc. The Chiefs, I don't know why they were so static on offense late after the first few drives, and they were running long developing route concepts. They weren't getting the ball out quickly. It was confusing. And obviously down the stretch, they ended up putting points up, but that was garbage time, right? The crux of this game, the real meat of this game, the first half, I don't understand what the Chiefs' plan was offensively, which is bizarre to say. You don't normally see that. Another thing I think you can take away from the Eagles for sure, and Howie Roseman, incredible general manager, you have to take advantage of market inefficiencies and opportunities when they present themselves. We don't know what opportunities might present themselves to the Jaguars this offseason, whether it's via trade, whether it's a free agent that surprisingly hits the market, whether it's a draft, a player in the draft that falls way past where they should potentially fall. The Eagles have taken advantage of all those things, and they have built through the draft and through free agency heavily. A lot of folks are like, oh, you have to build only through the draft. You have to nail both. You do. And just look at some of the things that they've been able to do. A.J. Brown being available via trade, that's not something you really expect to happen, right? But the Titans made him available via trade, and the Eagles pounced on it, and they took advantage of that. They took advantage of that opportunity. So it's situations like that where you have the ability to go get somebody who is a superstar that creates horrible mismatches for your opponents, and make that happen. Or like, Saquon Barkley, right? And one thing that was so impressive kind of leads to my final point, but the Chiefs shut down Saquon for the most part. They really did. And it didn't matter because they had the Eagles had multiple answers, right? They had the ability to throw the ball down the field to their receivers. And so you as a team, you have to be able to pivot. You have to have multiple answers. And the Eagles had all the answers to the test last night. So you can't just be a one-dimensional team. You have to have it all to really win the Super Bowl. And you look at the Chiefs last year, they had a better roster last year. They had L'Jarius Sneed last year. He helped them win the Super Bowl, right? It wasn't just Trent McDuffie and a bunch of average guys out there. They had two great corners, and that helped them win last year, right? They lost him this year. But market inefficiencies and opportunities, A.J. Brown being available via trade, your division rivals letting Saquon go. Unbelievable. Your other division rivals being willing to trade Jahan Dotson to you. And look, he makes a huge play in the Super Bowl. The two DBs that fell in the draft this year, there's no way Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean should have been available when they were available. Quinyon Mitchell, to me, was like a top 10-ish prospect, right on the border there of top 10. And Cooper DeJean was top 20, and they took advantage of inefficiencies in the draft. For whatever reason, cornerbacks fell down the board, and they were able to take advantage of that in a huge way. How about Jalen Carter falling all the way to them? Again, an unexpected situation happens. A player falls down the draft board. You're able to land him at 9, and now he is one of the top 3 most disruptive interior players in the NFL. How about Jalen Hurts being available at pick 53, and now he has turned into a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? There's so many hits. Zach Bond. New Orleans doesn't care about losing him. He comes in and he plays the season of a lifetime at linebacker for them. How about Nakobe Dean falling to the 3rd round? And he wasn't able to play because of injury, but that was a guy that took a huge step for them this year. How about you look at Mekhi Becton being cast off by the Jets? You bring him in, put him at guard. He has a big year for you. The Eagles hit every single time. And you can't expect it. And I say that. They did miss on Bryce Huff, right? That situation didn't work out the way they had hoped it would, and obviously it didn't work out for the Jets either. But they had other answers. Josh Sweat available, Brandon Graham being able to dominate on the interior with Milton Williams and obviously Jalen Carter and the rest of that bunch. Moro Ojomo, a really good player who I liked in the draft, who's playing good for them. Nolan Smith taking step forward. Like, they've done a great job. I think that their focus is from the inside out. And when I say that, it's like interior and out. I think that's how the Jaguars should try to build as well. And that doesn't mean you don't draft a receiver in the 1st round. It doesn't mean you don't draft a corner highly. It means your focus needs to be making sure you have the trenches in place, and then everything else falls in line after that, right? So that's kind of how I view it. As long as you have really good trench play, and then that's going to get you far. And then to win the Super Bowl, you have to pretty much have it all, right? You have to have it all. And the Chiefs, again, they kind of felt like they could piece it together at CB2, and they did most of the year, and it ended up really costing them in this game. They didn't have a good plan at left tackle this year either. It cost them in this game. And, shout out to Joe Thuney for playing his butt off for a lot of the time that he had to go play left tackle, but it was a mismatch with Josh Sweat, obviously, and those guys. But those are kind of my takeaways. The Jaguars can really look at this game and say, how do we try to get to where Philly is? And one great thing is I think they have the quarterback in place. They've got Brian Thomas Jr. They think they now have the coaching. But, Vic Fangio, unbelievable game plan, unbelievable coach to be able to get Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and, 2 rookies playing at that high of a level, and then getting Zach Bond playing the best football of his life, and the list goes on and on. So, lots of little nuggets for the Jaguars to take away from this one. But really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.